The brand new Matter standard should unmuddle smart home devices and point the way to the next level of highly interconnected buildings, vehicles, and even critical infrastructure. I spoke to Thomas Rosteck of Infineon all about this.
Could you frame Matter for us? What is it and what's significant about it?
Sure, I'm happy to. So Matter will be the standard, the open standard for smart home. And today, if you try to embed devices into your home, you have the problem because they all follow different standards. There are some proprietary systems, and it really doesn't fit together. You have to basically acknowledge one of them, which is obviously a problem if this vendor doesn't exist anymore and stuff. So you're kind of depending on it. With the standard, you open up this and make sure that devices are interoperable. And with being interoperable, you can basically now plug whatever you have into your smart home. And I think that's the great thing.
The biggest companies got together to develop this consensus to do
Correct.
Interoperability at this level. The Googles, the Amazons.
And it's also one of the things that's close to my heart, coming out of security part of Infineon. Also in Matter, security played a major role. So the standard is kind of reflecting security protocols, certificates, all the things that you need to make the system that you have at home secure. While at the same time, the end user doesn't have to care for it, because the end user doesn't have an understanding about how to protect the home, so the system has to provide it, and the standard's kind of caring for it.
Baby boomers, Gen Xers, of which I'm part of that group, we're all aging, and smart homes, you made a point this morning, could be vital to us as we age.
So we live in an aging society. That's one of the, if you will, mega trends and one of the problems of this world. And what we want to have, at least what I want to have, is I want to live as long as possible self-contained as at home. So now, how can a smart home help me there? A smart home can support me by devices that are kind of easy to use, that I can talk to, for example, instead of doing complicated inputs. That in let's say, if I need help, that are calling for help. So we have quite some things that a smart home can support me with. We have a nice demo here showing also a smart lock in a bigger context, but this smart lock can be opened, let's say, with a card, for example, which especially for elderly people might be very easy compared to trying to get a key into a lock, right? And it's a simple example, right? But these are potential behind it, and if we are successful with this, it will also help us on a society level, because we need less elderly homes and all these kind of things.
Yes, on the social level, with better care that our elderlies deserve.
Right.
But it goes beyond that to solve some of the bigger questions as well in terms of energy use and
Absolutely.
climate change. Could you tie that in?
Let's tackle the one that you just mentioned, is energy efficiency or energy consumption, right? So how can a smart home help to kind of reduce energy consumption? So I have a simple example. So I have a wall box that's going to charge my car, and I have a solar system on my roof. So now let's assume my wall box tells the solar system we need to charge the car now. And the solar system says, it's cloudy today, so I can only charge the car half full, the rest we have to take from the public network. Then the wall box says either, half full is good enough, because he is just going to office the next day, or it says he's going to go to Los Angeles tomorrow, so we need it fully charged, right? So now, if you take the bigger picture and talk about all the solar system, all the smart homes around here, right? If 80% would say he's just going to the office, then this 80% don't pull power out of the public network, right? And we save energy with this. And only the 20% that needs to go to Los Angeles tomorrow, they would basically take this energy. Which would mean this digitalization helps you to save energy by just not using it.
We really have many of the big pieces to do this, to tackle these mega trends, because we have these sensors now, we have the telemetry, we are collecting more data, and we have the analytics to analyze it, to do some of these fantastic services that benefit society on a large measure. Can you talk about that a bit?
So if you talk about energy efficiency is coming really from two pieces, right? So the one piece is, and that's also where we have a strong footprint in, is the power devices. Power semiconductors make sure that when I generate energy, when I transport energy, or when I consume energy, that I do this efficiently, meaning not wasting, not turning energy into heat, right? But turning energy in what I really want to use it for, right? So that's the one piece of it. The second one is then really the intelligence, right? And the intelligence piece meaning steering, deciding, and so on. And for decisions, obviously I need to make the device aware of its environment, right? In my example, I said the solar system says it's cloudy. So how does the solar system figure out it's cloudy, right? So it basically can see this either by having a special sensor or by the amount of energy coming in, the amount of sun coming into the solar system to figure that out. So then the question is, what do I do with this next? So I bring this all to a microcontroller, so to a computing engine, if you will, and then this computing engine is deciding based on either algorithms or based on artificial intelligence how we're gonna decide, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. And what I found interesting, another thing I learned today was that we are going to need to be more efficient in our use of energy for obvious reasons, like trying to solve climate change, but also to be able to have enough energy to do these higher level computations,
right,
and achieve these greater benefits.
You could say that obviously calculation, especially if we talk about server farms, right? Server farms consume quite a bit of energy, right? And so the question is, how much do I, let's say, what kind of computation I really do in the cloud, so in server farms, and how much of the computation of the intelligence I really can do at the edge, so basically at the device level, right? And I think the beauty of it is that the devices that we have, being the microcontrollers and the stuff around it, getting more and more powerful, more and more performance, so we can do a lot more in the edge compared to earlier times. So there are various reasons how we deal with this and why edge computing will play a major role. I forgot one last thing. Especially coming from Germany, it's a pretty important topic, which is privacy, right? Obviously, all the sensors collecting information about me, about my home, and so on. And I only want this data in the cloud if necessary, right? And if it can be computed in my home, then I personally would prefer it, right? So another reason for edge computing.
So how does the Matter standard advanced cybersecurity, short-term and long-term?
What I really admire with Matter was one of the first standards that I know that took security in from the beginning, right? Which is important. I have seen standards that were finished and that at the end said, okay, we forgot security, so we have to do something about it. But security, and that's also true for the standard, security is like if you do a cake, if you bake a cake, right? You can't change the flavor of the cake when the cake is finished, right? And that's the same with security. You have to think security from the beginning. And that's important here. So security was one of the working groups, so they deal with it from the beginning. And there are mechanisms, protocols in there that will make sure that the devices connect securely.
It's also kind of a model for collaboration that's going to be needed among normally competitive technology vendors.
Absolutely. And I think that's again a benefit of standards, right? Where standards provide a common base and a common possibility to connect devices and cooperate with devices. At the same time, it does not hinder competition afterwards, right? So I can still differentiate even I have a standard, right? And I think that's important. That's why standards, usually from my perspective, they kind of push innovation rather than they hinder them, right? Because I can really focus on differentiation on a given basis that everyone is working with.
How is the geopolitical environment today acting as a driver to make this a little more urgent for us to do?
And unfortunately, we have situations, for example, in Europe, we are faced, perhaps even more faced than here in the US with the war in Ukraine. And this shows us how much we are dependent on fossil energies, resources, right? And this gives it another drive, another push to basically be more independent. And with this, we kind of renewable energies is obviously one of the major measures there.
So meanwhile, consumers and citizens are going to engage with the Matter standard at the first step level this holiday season. Matter is a starting point, would you argue?
Absolutely. And again, I think as anything new, it will take a while. Matter devices will come with a certificate. The certificate will tell you about the device and about the manufacturer. And once it's in your system, in your smart home, it will also get another certificate for kind of doing a secure transaction inside of your home. So that means the ease of integration will be one of the drivers from my perspective why this Matter standard will be successful.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas. That was very enlightening.
Thank you for having me.